My name is Rachel Monroe, and I serve as a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. Most of what I handle is classified, but I can tell you this: if dirty money slipped into the wrong pipeline, I was usually the one to uncover it. I had just gotten back from a deployment. Nothing cinematic, no heroic return, just a quiet ride home, a tired soldier with a stiff back and an inbox drowning in unread messages. What I missed most was my daughter, Emily. She's 14 now, sharp as a blade. After dropping my duffel inside, I went straight to check one thing: our college fund. It was a promise I'd made to her back when she could barely pronounce Harvard. I contributed every month without fail. That account was sacred. But when I logged in, my stomach dropped. $96,800, gone. Every last cent pulled in a single transaction. I refreshed the screen, stared, refreshed again. Then I opened the authorization trail. It was dual signatory. And there it was, Lauren Monroe, my sister. I hadn't laid eyes on Lauren in 7 months. Last I knew, she was living in a cramped Las Vegas studio, scraping by on late rent payments and blaming her ex-husband, bad luck, and the economy for everything wrong in her life. So imagine my reaction when I opened her Instagram and saw a glossy caption: "New view, new me. Finally earned it." The shot was taken from the 34th floor of a luxury penthouse overlooking downtown. That post went up 5 days after the money disappeared. I sat there frozen, not from shock, but from a kind of silent rage that could split bone. This wasn't just carelessness. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft, from a child. From my child. And Lauren knew exactly what that money meant. Emily's future. Emily's dreams. Emily's shot at freedom. While I was away in uniform, my sister had drained my daughter's college fund to buy herself a view. 3 days later, Emily caught me off guard. She looked at me over breakfast and said, "Mom, don't worry. What she took wasn't the real treasure." 2 days after that, Lauren called, screaming. I hadn't told Emily anything yet, but I didn't have to. The next morning, while I sliced apples for her lunch, she slid her iPad across the counter. On it was a full login history, complete with timestamps and fallback IP mapping. She used a VPN, Emily said calmly, but I traced the secondary authentication node. My 14-year-old had reverse-engineered my sister's login pattern through a sloppy VPN configuration. Not bad for someone who still sleeps with a nightlight. I couldn't hide my pride. "She thinks she stole something valuable," Emily added, "but she didn't take the most important thing." That's when I knew we weren't going to shout or beg. We were going to act. I compiled every digital log and submitted them to the Judge Advocate General's office, along with proof that the second signature wasn't authorized. No charges yet, just a quiet flag on Lauren's accounts. 3 days later, Lauren's voice shook over the phone. "Rachel, I don't know what's happening. My accounts are frozen. I can't access my money. I'm scared." I stayed silent. Justice had already started moving. And Emily was steering it. That very morning, she had filed a fraud report with the bank under my name, armed with legal precedent, time-stamped digital evidence, and a clean timeline she'd built in her coding software. Emily might have been 14, but her mind was tactical, precise, patient, and unapologetically strategic. I'd always thought I'd be the one protecting her. But that day, watching her sip juice while methodically dismantling a penthouse scam, I realized this wasn't revenge, it was restoration. And Emily had only played her first move. I am Rachel Monroe, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force. I've hunted illicit crypto networks, shut down black market supply chains masquerading as charities, and handed airtight evidence to rooms full of powerful men who couldn't look me in the eye. But this time, I didn't see the enemy coming. Not from a rival government. Not from a rogue contractor. From my own sister, Lauren. The same sister who once hid candy bars in my duffel when Mom grounded me, who braided my hair the night before I shipped to basic. After her divorce, she had nowhere to go, so I let her stay, not for a week, but almost 2.5 years. She cried in my kitchen when she lost her job. She left her dishes in my sink, borrowed my sweaters, hugged Emily like her own. She swore she was rebuilding her life, and I believed her. But maybe that's the danger with family. You don't expect the con to come from someone who knows your face. She watched me build that fund, saw every deposit, every milestone. And while I was overseas, trusting her to help with Emily, she walked into my account and gutted it. No argument, no warning, just a keystroke and a call to a realtor. Looking back, the red flags were there. Once, she casually asked if Emily's fund could be tapped in an emergency. I shrugged it off. A week before my deployment, she offered to help consolidate my accounts. She sat next to me with a latte and watched me log in. She didn't need my password, just the bank name. I teach national security ethics, and I missed the breach happening at my own table. The last call I made to Emily before flying back, she told me, Auntie Lauren's been redecorating her room. She says she's manifesting a new life. I laughed. But Lauren wasn't manifesting, she was plotting. And she fooled Emily too. They used to read comics together, bake banana bread, whisper that family means forever. Turns out forever stops at $96,800. This wasn't just about money, it was about trust, about being used. But in financial counterintelligence, you don't storm in. You document, piece by piece, and let the truth hit harder than any punch. I never blocked her number. I never warned her. I didn't confront her face to face because I knew something she didn't. This wasn't about revenge. This was going to be a lesson for her, for Emily, and for me. We were about to find out just how far quiet justice could travel. After deployments, my body is conditioned for silence. Long, steady stretches of it. That's when you hear what matters. So, I sat in my living room, breathing evenly while the storm inside my chest swirled without a sound. I scrolled through every one of Lauren's posts. The penthouse photo was captioned, "Earned every inch." The comments gushed, strangers congratulating her, calling her a self-made success, praising her glow up. If only they knew. Another post showed her holding a champagne flute, the skyline burning orange in the sunset. The caption read, "Manifesting peace at last." And there I was, sitting cross-legged on my own floor, manifesting restraint. I considered calling her. Even typed out a message. Then deleted it. Words wouldn't land the way truth would, and Lauren never cared much for words anyway. She paid attention only when something touched her directly. And I knew something bigger than words was coming. Something precise, deliberate, and impossible to stop. Because when the woman you've stolen from is a counterintelligence officer with nothing left to lose, there are no warnings, only consequences. And they arrive quietly. I used to believe that someone who's hit rock bottom would never strip another person of hope. I was wrong. Lauren knew what it was to be broke, humiliated, uncertain. I'd been the one sitting on the floor beside her when the divorce papers came. I sorted her overdue bills. I made the calls she couldn't. I gave her more than shelter. I gave her back her dignity. So when I gave her co-signing access to Emily's college fund, I didn't hesitate. It wasn't just convenient while I was away, it was trust. Pure, unguarded trust. No contract. No contingency. No firewall. Just faith in blood. I remember that night clearly. Lauren brought a bottle of wine. Emily had dozed off on the couch after watching a documentary about the Mars rover. Lauren looked at me over the rim of her glass and said, "You always take care of everyone. Let someone take care of you for once." Maybe I needed to hear that. Maybe I wanted to believe she still saw me as more than a uniform. So I nodded, clicked submit, and in doing so, handed her the keys to everything I'd built for Emily. The real betrayal wasn't the stolen money, it was that she saw the open door and walked through it without ever turning back. In training, we're taught to trust patterns, not people. To map behavior, spot inconsistencies, calculate risk. But with family, you don't map, you remember. And memory lies. I thought of Emily, 14 now, sharp, curious, always poking holes in systems. Once she asked me why the government doesn't use AI to detect fraud faster. That morning, after I'd found the account empty, she sat eating cereal and scrolling through a financial crime blog. She looked up and said, "You always told me people's actions are just data points, right, Mom?" I nodded. Then maybe it's time we chart Aunt Lauren's behavior like we would a suspect. That's when I realized I wasn't in this fight alone. Emily wasn't just my daughter, she was turning into an analyst. And Lauren had no idea. We started small. Pulled IP logs. Checked metadata. Cross-referenced realtor listings with timestamps. The penthouse had been bought in cash. 3 days before I even set foot back in Corbett, Lauren had funneled the money into a shell account. I dug deeper: email headers, VPN leaks, one packet bounce that traced back to a coffee shop just 4 blocks from Emily's school. That wasn't just a slip. That was arrogance. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Lauren hadn't only emptied Emily's college fund, she'd opened a secondary line of credit under our family name, with no intention of paying it back. Worse, she forged my authorization on an old insurance policy while I was deployed. This wasn't opportunistic theft, it was planned. And I'd unknowingly given her the tools. That night I sat in the garage, engine off, laptop balanced on my knees, staring at the timeline Emily and I had built. It was clean, brutal, exact. And in that silence I whispered, I did this. Because in a way, I had. I let love cloud my judgment. I taught Emily to see the good in people, and I used that same lesson to excuse my own blind spots. Trust is powerful, but in the wrong hands, it's a weapon. We kept going. We stored logs on encrypted drives, catalogued files. I walked Emily through digital forensics like she was one of my cadets. At night, we'd sit on the kitchen floor, cocoa mugs cooling beside us, 2 laptops glowing. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what was ours. One night, after Emily went to bed, I replayed one of Lauren's old voicemails, the one where she cried that no one ever believed in her. I'd kept it once to remind myself why I helped. But listening now, I wondered, was she crying or performing? That's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just cut, it corrodes. It makes you doubt your memories, your instincts, even your worth. But I wasn't about to let Lauren rewrite our story. Not for Emily. Not for me. And not without consequence. Every screenshot we saved felt like another brick of justice set in place. Emily even started naming the folders like mission files. Operation Trustfall was the one where we tracked the wire transfers. She giggled at her own joke. I laughed too. For the first time in days, I could breathe again. And then came the email. No subject line, just a burner address. The message was short and clear: you don't know what you're doing. Stop before someone gets hurt. We were in deeper than I thought. I didn't call Lauren. I didn't storm her penthouse or bang on the designer door. Instead, I opened my secure drive and uploaded everything: the forged signatures, the shell accounts, the laundering trail. One batch went to the SEC tip line. Another to the IRS whistleblower portal. A third to a private investigator I'd used in a counterintelligence case. I left no trace of who sent it. Then I closed the laptop and turned to Emily. Do you want me to take her to court and get the money back? I asked. Emily didn't blink. She held my gaze with the steady calm I'd only seen in seasoned officers. No, she said. I want her to know exactly what she did and live with it, just like I had to live thinking my future was gone. That was my daughter, 14 years old, and already wiser than most adults I've served with. Before I even asked Emily what she wanted, I sat alone in the living room with a mug of black tea cooling in my hands. Court would have been quick, neat, and by the book. My uniform came with certain advantages. I knew the right attorney to call, the judge who might lean toward reason. But that route felt too clean, too far removed from the real wound. This wasn't about the money. It was about dignity. About the look in Emily's eyes the day she realized someone she called Aunt had traded her future for square footage and skyline views. Emily's answer later would only confirm what I already knew but hadn't spoken aloud. Lauren didn't need to pay us back. She needed to sit with the cost. She needed to live in the quiet between phone calls that wouldn't come and invitations that never arrived. The kind of justice that doesn't come from a verdict, but from a mirror she couldn't avoid. We didn't need to make her bleed. We needed her to see herself clearly for the first time in years. So we changed course. We built something sharper than a lawsuit. We built silence. The kind that slips into cracks, seeps behind walls, and echoes louder than shouting ever could. The first step was freezing her line of credit, legally. I used a buried clause in the co-sign agreement she'd forgotten I knew existed. It flagged suspicious activity and triggered an automatic hold. Her card stopped working on a Wednesday morning. Next came the condo board inquiry. An anonymous complaint pointing to undisclosed wire sources. It wasn't hard to prove. Her penthouse had been bought through a trust tied to a flagged foreign entity she probably didn't even realize she touched. The mortgage didn't vanish, but it suddenly had layers of complications. By Friday, Her Instagram shifted from champagne to chamomile tea, and then nothing. No captions, no stories, just absence. Emily spotted it first. "She's spiraling," she said. I nodded. We weren't aiming to destroy her, we wanted her to feel the weight of what she took, to wonder what else might be coming. Every move was a chess piece sliding into place, and Lauren didn't even know she was on the board. We planted quiet seeds, small comments in old family group chats. "Hey, has Lauren mentioned her new job title? I think it changed." Or, "Wonder if she's still working with that mortgage firm?" Harmless questions, but they spread. Soon Lauren was calling, not me, but our cousin Lucy, my mother, even Emily's old piano teacher. People began to distance themselves, not because they knew what she'd done, but because something felt wrong. And guilt? Guilt grows louder in silence. Exactly what we wanted. That week, Emily surprised me. She printed the account statement, zero balance in red, and mailed it to Lauren's penthouse. No note, no return address. Just truth on paper. I raised her well. That night, Lauren called. I ignored the first 4 attempts. On the 5th, I answered, not with rage, not even with sharpness, just silence. She spoke first. "Rachel, I know what I did." Her voice was raw, stripped bare. "I thought I deserved it. I thought you'd recover." I didn't think Emily would even notice. Those words cut deeper than any confession. My tone stayed level. She noticed, Lauren. She noticed everything. Then I hung up. 2 days into our silence campaign, I sent a plain white envelope, no subpoena, no lawyer's letterhead, just a full-color printout of Emily's drained account. Dates, her digital signature, the zero balance. I slipped in a single line, handwritten on thick cardstock, "What you stole only had value to you." I didn't track delivery. I didn't need to. By the second night, my phone lit up with her name again. On the 4th try, I answered, calm and steady. Her voice trembled before words came. "If you report this, I'll lose everything." I let the pause hang between us until it hurt. Then I asked, "And Emily, what did she lose, Lauren?" The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. I could hear her breath catch, could almost feel the weight of guilt settling in. She didn't answer. I didn't push. I leaned back, staring out at the backyard Emily and I had planted last summer, now touched with autumn red. A memory crept in, Lauren at 15, standing in front of me while a boy from the neighborhood hurled rocks at our window. She'd taken the bruise on her shoulder and told Dad she'd fallen off her bike. Back then, she'd rather go hungry than let me get hurt. And now? She'd traded Emily's future for marble countertops and a view. Lauren's voice broke the silence. "I just thought, you didn't need it. You've always had backup plans. You always land on your feet." I didn't think she'd. Her voice trailed off. I closed my eyes and let the ache roll through me. She noticed, Lauren. She noticed everything. Another silence. I heard her sniff, shame, fear, maybe both. "I'll fix it," she whispered. "I'll sell the car, maybe the place." I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. But the part forged in desert winds and interrogation rooms, the part that had seen men lie with medals pinned to their chests, that part waited. "You can't fix what you won't name," I said, flat and final. She didn't reply. I ended the call with a single line, "I hope someday you realize who you became." Click. The line went dead. I stayed there a while, phone still in hand. There's a kind of grief no funeral can hold, the grief of losing someone who's still alive. That night, Emily climbed into bed beside me. No questions, no commentary, just her head against my shoulder. She didn't ask what Lauren had said. She didn't need to. I switched off the lamp and whispered, "She knows now." Emily didn't speak, but her hand found mine under the covers and squeezed twice. "We're okay. I'm safe. Thank you for not yelling. Thanks for fighting differently." That's what Emily told me. And for the first time since stepping off the plane, I let myself believe we'd won. Not in a courtroom, not with a bank reversal, but in a way that mattered far more. We'd forced Lauren to face herself. That was justice enough. She began to unravel almost immediately. Within days of our last conversation, she cashed out her small share in a boutique interior design firm, withdrew from the investment group she'd been part of for over 4 years, and quietly listed the penthouse on a private market app. It was desperation wrapped in curated Instagram posts, cryptic captions like "Sometimes family isn't blood" and "Rebuilding quietly." I didn't reply. Not online, not by phone. I had other work to do. The moment I confirmed she'd impersonated a legal guardian to access funds meant for a minor, I knew my leverage wasn't just moral, it was legal. And jurisdiction was on my side. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about consequence. I assembled a confidential packet for the Judge Advocate General's office, account ownership records, notarized transaction logs, Instagram purchase posts matched to bank withdrawals, and a guardianship statement signed by my commanding officer before deployment. In my time with JAG, I'd seen service members prosecuted for far less. Because this wasn't just fraud, it was a breach of fiduciary duty against a dependent interest, with both civil and federal weight due to interstate digital banking and military status. By the time the priority-marked reply from the JAG legal analyst landed in my inbox, Lauren's panic had gone public. Friends sent me clips of her vague TikToks, rambling about being set up, about people twisting the narrative, about haters who can't stand my glow-up. But her voice was tight, her eyes strained. No penthouse view behind her anymore, just a plain apartment wall. Meanwhile, Emily stayed on task. She'd taken it upon herself to organize every scholarship application we'd planned to submit months later. Just in case, she said. Watching her work without theatrics, with quiet focus, I realized what we were building wasn't revenge. It was resilience. Before formally filing with JAG, I walked to the base legal office. Major Linda Foster, a composed, razor-sharp officer with 2 decades in the system, took her time going through the documents. She didn't speak until she'd read every line. When she finally looked up, she asked just one question. "Do you want this to go criminal, Rachel, or just official?" I paused. I want her to feel the system she thought she could game. Major Foster nodded. Then we start with asset preservation. Civil filings first. If she pushes back, we escalate. Within the week, I was notified our asset freeze request was being reviewed for emergency enforcement. The fact that Lauren had used a falsified co-guardian status while I was overseas triggered a protection clause meant specifically to shield military families from financial predation. JAG would flag her to the Treasury Department. From there, IRS audit, credit flag, property freeze. I didn't smile. But I did breathe easier. Until the email came. Subject line, "You're ruining her." Body, "She's your sister. She made a mistake. Do you really want to destroy her over a deposit slip?" No signature, but I knew the phrasing. Our cousin Melissa, the eternal peacemaker, the same one who told me during my divorce, "Maybe it's time to just let it go." I didn't respond. I printed it, highlighted her line "She made a mistake," and wrote underneath, "No. She made a decision." It went into the same evidence folder as the bank logs, IP trace, and affidavit, not for court, but so I'd remember how deep the silence ran. How many people could look at a mother's heartbreak and ask her to apologize for it? That night on the back porch, Emily sat under a blanket with her laptop. She glanced up and said, "I know it's not about the money, Mom, but it feels like she didn't even think I was worth asking about." That hit harder than I expected. I brushed her hair back. "She didn't steal from you, Emily. She stole from the person she thought you'd never become." Emily nodded. Her eyes stayed dry, but mine nearly didn't. It took me back to a night years ago when Lauren had cried in my arms after her second failed business. She whispered, "You're the strong one, Rachel. You always were." Back then, I believed her. Now, I believed in consequences. The next morning, I laid every document out on the dining table like a mission briefing. Mixed in with the files, I found an old drawing Emily had made, stick figures of us holding hands in front of a college, a rainbow overhead. I stared at it far too long. This wasn't about payback. It was about making sure that picture still had a future. At 6:14 p.m. that Wednesday, my phone rang. I recognized the voice before I even saw the name, Lucas Taylor, retired Air Force, former Logistics Command. We'd worked side by side on 2 rotations in Aludade. Lucas didn't call without reason. "She offered to manage part of our retirement fund," he said. Told me she had an inside track on real estate flips. Sounded too polished. My stomach sank. "You mean Lauren?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Yeah. And if she'd try that with you, he trailed off. What do you want me to do? Nothing. Not yet, I said. Because now, it was bigger than us. If Lauren had approached Lucas, there was a pattern. This wasn't an isolated betrayal, it was a system, a cycle, maybe even a business model. And suddenly, I understood something Emily had said the night before: she didn't steal from you. She leveraged you. That night, Emily curled up beside me on the couch, tapping away at our shared Google Doc for research. What are you working on? I asked. Building a template, she said without looking up. For what? She turned the laptop so I could see. A whistleblower report, anonymous, direct, specific. Alleged laundering through layered debt structures disguised as family-backed personal loans. 3 banks listed. 2 account types. 1 name, Lauren Monroe. I blinked. She told Aunt Jess she refinanced her condo, Emily said. But I checked the tax records. It's not in her name, it's in someone else's. Which means she's using it as a collateral loop. I took a moment to process. Who's the someone else? Emily tapped the screen. Dad, she said. My ex-husband. I took a deep breath. Does he know? I asked. I don't think so, Emily said. But he definitely didn't sign off. I didn't ask how she was so sure. Instead, I asked, you want to send this? She nodded once. Anonymous. No IP. Routed through Tor. Let the banks connect the dots. I just stared at her, this 14-year-old who wasn't just enduring what had happened. She was dismantling it, piece by piece. All right, I said finally. Send it. The report went out to 3 places: the bank that held Lauren's penthouse mortgage, the firm managing her investment trust, and the Federal Oversight Channel for red flag fraud. And then we waited. I went back to work that week, quieter than usual. Each time my base commander handed me a file on foreign transfers, the irony burned in my throat. I'd spent years chasing illicit money trails across continents, but the most dangerous laundering was happening in my own family. 2 weeks later, an email landed in my personal inbox. No subject. No body. Just a link. Local businesswoman under investigation for financial irregularities. The photo was awful, Lauren looking over her shoulder, jaw tight. Behind her, courthouse steps. No cuffs. Not yet. But the tension was there. The article mentioned unusual banking activity and use of third-party assets to secure high-risk personal loans. It also noted that the bank had already frozen 2 of her accounts under anti-money laundering protocols. I didn't send it to Emily. She found it on her own. Good, she said flatly. Then after a pause, but it's not about ruining her, right? I met her eyes. No. It's about stopping her. She nodded. And keeping people safe from her. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered and heard her voice. Rachel, what did you do? Lauren's whisper was smaller than I'd ever heard it. What I should have done months ago. Everything's gone, she breathed. My lines of credit, my accounts, even the condo. It's not yours, I said. Silence. I didn't go public, I added. Not yet. Why? Because you're my sister. And because Emily asked me not to. Her voice cracked. She asked for mercy? I swallowed hard. She asked for justice. Mercy is mine to decide. There was nothing left to say. She hung up, and I stood in the dark kitchen, listening to the soft click of the line going dead. It was one of those cold afternoons where the wind cuts sideways and you can hear every creak in the bones of an old house. I was repairing the espresso machine, just a cracked seal on the pump valve. Tightening screws felt better than standing still. Machines break for obvious reasons. People rarely do. Emily sat at the table with a steaming chai. She was quiet for a while. I thought she was reading. Mom, she said finally, do you ever think you were wrong to give her that chance? I looked up. She wasn't angry, just thoughtful, tired around the eyes. You mean Lauren? She nodded. I let the question sit. Then answered slowly, I don't think it was wrong to give her the chance. The mistake was assuming she knew what to do with it. So trusting her wasn't the problem? I shook my head. No. Trust isn't the problem. But teaching someone what that trust is worth? That's where I failed. It's not enough to believe in someone, sweetheart. You have to show them how to carry that belief. Otherwise, it's like handing them a loaded weapon and hoping they don't fire. She looked down at her mug. So, it's our fault? No, I said firmly. Her choices are her own. But sometimes when we love someone enough, we help build the road they take, even if it leads them away from us. She stayed quiet. The wind rattled the shutters. Then she asked, "Do you think we create the people who betray us?" I set down the screwdriver. That's a heavy question. I know. I took a breath. Sometimes, yes. Not because we're bad, but because we're scared. We overextend. We overgive. We make allowances we'd never make for anyone else, because deep down, we're afraid of being alone. She didn't answer, but her lips pressed into a thin line. I walked over, knelt beside her chair. I gave Lauren that access because I didn't want to admit I had no one else to name. I was deploying, and I couldn't name your father. I thought blood meant loyalty. But she did, Emily said softly. She did. Emily's hand rested on mine. She didn't just steal from you. She stole from both of us. Yes. But you never yelled. Never broke anything. You just responded. I smiled faintly. Because I knew who was watching. Her brow furrowed. There's always a child in the room, I said. Even if they're silent. Even if they're just listening from the hallway. I paused. I've interrogated cartel accountants, cybercriminals, and fraud architects. But nothing prepares you for when your own sister lies to your face with a smile. So, how did you stay strong? You, I answered without hesitation. Her lips parted. I looked at you and remembered why I fought so hard to build this life. Not for money, not for medals. For you, to give you the space to dream. Her throat worked. That's why I didn't burn Lauren to the ground, I added. Because if I'd gone after her with fire, you'd think fire was the answer. And it's not. Fire only leaves ash. We stood in silence. Then she murmured so softly I almost missed it, "I'm glad you didn't become her." I met her eyes. Me too. The calls started slowly. A cousin here, an aunt there. Numbers I hadn't seen in years lighting up my phone. One voicemail, "Rachel, she's your sister. Family doesn't drag family through the mud." Another, "Handle it quietly. That's what decent people do." Some didn't bother with kindness. You think exposing Lauren helps anyone? This just makes you look cold, more soldier than sister. Maybe they were right. But not in the way they thought. I didn't return the calls. Didn't text back. Didn't explain, because I didn't owe them that anymore. One evening, my friend from base, Corey, called. He wasn't family, which meant he had the courage to be blunt. No hello. Just, "You really pressing charges against your own blood?" I kept my voice level. I filed a civil fraud report. "That's not pressing charges," I told Corey. "That's protecting my child's financial future." He let out a sharp breath. "Still feels heavy." "It is heavy," I said. "But not heavier than watching Emily lose faith in everyone she's ever known." There was a pause. "Is it worth it?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. From the other room came the quiet hum of the printer. Emily was sitting cross-legged on the floor, methodically feeding pages into the tray, scholarship applications, essays, recommendation letters. The whole messy, determined business of growing up. She wasn't giving up. I thought of what she'd said the night Lauren's accounts were frozen. "I don't want revenge. I want her to feel what it's like to lose something she thought she had the right to control." I looked toward the hallway where the printer whirred steadily. "If I don't do this, Corey," I said at last, "what does Emily learn from me?" Silence. That you smile and keep the peace when someone steals your future? That silence is more important than justice? That being a good daughter means letting bad people win? He didn't respond. Just hung up. Outside, the street lights flickered on. Shadows lengthened in the room until the stillness itself felt weighted. Emily appeared in the doorway, a neat stack of papers in her hands. Her face was calm, but her fingers curled tighter than usual around the edges. "Can you read my essay?" she asked. "Of course." The prompt was simple: describe a moment that changed your life. She'd written about the college fund, but not about the money. She wrote about the day she realized someone she loved could betray her, and the day she saw her mother refuse to let it pass. "I used to think strength meant yelling back," she wrote. "But then I saw my mother, quiet, precise, unshaken. And that's the kind of strength I want. When I looked up, she was watching me." "You wrote this?" She nodded. "Is that okay?" "It's more than okay." "They're all mad at you, aren't they?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Because of me?" "No," I said quickly. "Because of me. But I'm the reason you had to. You didn't make Lauren steal. And you didn't make me act." She looked down. I stepped closer. "Emily, this isn't about you. It's about what people are willing to ignore. And I'll never teach you to ignore the truth." She tucked those words somewhere deep, then said, "Promise me something." "Anything. If I ever mess up, really mess up, will you hold me accountable like this?" "You want that?" "Yes. Because it means you believe I can do better." I smiled and pulled her into a hug. "Always." In that moment, I realized the hardest thing I'd done wasn't confronting Lauren. It was staying soft enough for Emily to still come to me with questions, in a world that tells her silence is easier. I didn't attend the hearing in person. Not because I couldn't face Lauren, but because I wanted her to face something else, the truth, in the quietest voice possible. Instead of testifying, I sent a letter. Not mine. Emily's. Handwritten in blue ink, folded into a plain white envelope. At the top, to the woman who used to braid my hair when Mom was deployed. The attorney asked the judge for permission to read it aloud. Lauren sat stiff in a gray blazer, shoulders drawn. "Dear Aunt," it began, "I will still go to college, not because we have money, but because I have my mom. She taught me that real dreams aren't built on someone else's money. I don't need a penthouse to feel worthy. I just need to remember that if someone ever takes something from me, I must never take it back by becoming like them. I don't hate you, but I hope you understand, money can't replace memories. And what you took from me can't be returned, the feeling of safety, my trust in family, and the nights I should have slept in peace. I will still learn, and I will use this pain to help others, because my mom says we don't need to be loud to be strong. We just need to choose right." The courtroom was silent. No coughs. No shuffling. Just stillness. I wasn't there, but my lawyer told me later, when the last word was read, Lauren lowered her head and wept. Not theatrically, not for pity. Just quiet tears, like something inside had finally broken open. She offered no rebuttal, no plea for leniency. She didn't speak at all. I don't know what she felt. Shame, regret, or simply the hollow echo of her own conscience in a place where my trust used to live. The judge granted our civil terms. Lauren would be legally barred from managing or accessing any account in another person's name for the next 10 years. Her fiduciary license suspended indefinitely. She was ordered to complete a course in financial ethics. Not a prison sentence, but in every sense, a reckoning. That night, Emily came into my room and curled up on the edge of the bed. "Do you think she read it all the way through?" "She did." "Do you think she believed me?" I paused. "It doesn't matter. I believed you. And you told the truth." Her smile was small but sure. "I didn't write it to win," she whispered. "I wrote it because I don't want to grow up like her." And in that moment I knew, we hadn't just reclaimed a college fund. We'd reclaimed something far more valuable, our voice, our peace, our power. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with something louder than both. With grace. I didn't return to my old unit, not because I wasn't welcome, but because it was time to serve differently. I accepted a position as a legal advisor for a veteran-led nonprofit, helping former service members track financial fraud and rebuild what was stolen from them. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't high profile. But it mattered. Every day, I sat across from someone who had trusted the wrong person, a sibling, a spouse, a friend in uniform. And I listened. Not to judge. Not to fix. But to show them they weren't alone. I didn't want to chase more criminals. I wanted to restore what I had almost lost. Protecting people isn't about fighting. It's about standing between them and what they're not yet ready to survive. Meanwhile, Emily began something of her own. One night over dinner she said, "Mom, what if there was a place, like a blog, where kids like me, military kids, could learn how to protect their accounts and their futures?" "You want to be the one to build it?" I asked. She nodded, eyes bright and certain. So she did. She called it Guardians of the Future. She wrote in plain, clear language, how to spot red flags on joint accounts, what to ask before letting someone co-sign, even how to talk to parents if you suspect something is wrong. She never mentioned Lauren. She never brought up the court. She just told the truth of what she'd learned, with honesty, vulnerability, and precision. Within months, the blog had a steady audience: teens with deployed parents, young adults who'd been betrayed, even a few military financial counselors linking to her guides. One day, Emily showed me a comment. "I thought I was stupid for trusting my cousin with my scholarship money. Your blog made me realize I'm not stupid, I was just unprotected." "Thank you." She didn't cry. She didn't brag. She simply closed her laptop and said, "We don't build futures on stolen floors." That line stayed with me. Because when we try to build on something taken instead of something earned, we're laying our foundations on rot. And rot always caves in. I used to think justice was a gavel or a verdict. Now I know, it's in the quiet rebuilding, in what we teach the next generation through resilience. One afternoon, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a note in handwriting I knew instantly. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I sold the penthouse. The money went into a fund for children of incarcerated veterans. It won't undo what I did, but maybe it can stop someone else from becoming like me." No signature. Just the silence of a woman who finally realized her noise had caused too much harm. I didn't call. I didn't write back. But that night, I lit a candle, not for her, not for reconciliation, but for release. Because when you let go of who someone could have been, you make room for who you need to become. And I needed to be the mother who could look her daughter in the eye and say, "We didn't win because we were smarter. We won because we stayed kind." It was a quiet Saturday. I was watering the lavender by the porch when I heard a car pull up. Not fast, not tentative, just steady. I didn't turn until I heard the footsteps. Slow. Familiar. Lauren. She stood at the edge of the walkway, wearing gray. No makeup. No jewelry. She wasn't crying or shaking, just holding something, a small wooden box. She didn't speak at first. Neither did I. Then she stepped closer, placing it on the porch rail. "It's the coffee grinder," she said quietly. "The old one. I left it when I moved out 7 years ago. Thought you might still want it." I looked at the box but didn't reach for it. Didn't open it. Didn't ask why now. We stood in silence for a few seconds more, the air thick with what we'd never say. Finally, I spoke. "I forgive you, Lauren," I said. "But I don't forget. And I don't open my door just because someone once lived here." She didn't flinch or defend herself. She just nodded, not with understanding exactly, but with something that looked like acceptance. Then she turned, walked back to her car, and left. No speech. No scene. Just the crunch of gravel under her shoes and the sound of a door closing. I stayed there a long time, looking at the box. I didn't bring it inside, and I didn't throw it away. I just let it sit on the porch rail, the way certain memories do, too solid to ignore, too light to chase. That night, Emily asked if I was okay. "Forgiveness isn't a clean cut," I told her. "It's a slow healing. And sometimes the scar still stings." She didn't push. She just sat beside me on the porch swing. We shared the stillness. It wasn't closure, but it was enough. Later, before bed, I looked out the window. The box was still there. The stars were quiet above it. And I whispered, not to Lauren, not to the past, but to myself, some returns aren't meant for reunion. Just recognition. Because sometimes, people don't come back to be let in. They come back to see who you've become after the door closed. And when they do, it's not your job to reopen the house, it's your right to guard the peace you've built inside it. 1 year later, almost to the day, Emily and I were reorganizing the living room. She sorted books by subject, she liked things neat, even if her bedroom said otherwise, while I went through old photo boxes. That's when I found it, a picture I hadn't seen in years. The three of us, sitting on a patchwork blanket in a small county park outside Cheyenne. Lauren with her arms behind her head like she owned the sky. Emily eating an orange popsicle. And me, smiling. Not the forced kind, the soft, unaware kind. The kind that doesn't yet know it's going to break. My first instinct was to set it aside. Maybe throw it away. But Emily noticed. "You don't have to keep it, Mom," she said quietly. "But maybe you should." I looked at her. She was taller now, steadier, her voice carrying weight as well as words. "Why?" I asked. She came over, took the photo from my hand, and held it under the light as if it were sacred. "Not because she's in it," Emily said. "Because it's a moment we all shared before the silence. Before the theft. Before trust and family had to be separated. Keep it, not because she deserves to be remembered, but because it shows we tried. That we forgave even when it wasn't easy, even when it wasn't deserved. And someday when I'm older, I'll need to remember that too, that forgiveness is something we give. Not because people have earned it, but because we refuse to carry their weight forever." The air in the room shifted, not heavy, not sad, just still. I placed the photo back into the frame that had been empty since the day Lauren walked out, and set it on the bookshelf. Some might see weakness in keeping a reminder of someone who hurt us. I don't. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It isn't letting someone back in. It's reclaiming the space they once poisoned and saying, "You don't define this anymore." That picture didn't belong to Lauren now, it belonged to Emily, to me, to who we became after. As the evening light dimmed across the living room floor, Emily handed me a cup of tea. We sat in silence. Then she said, "She couldn't take this part, you know." I looked at her. This house. This peace. This bond. She stole money, time, trust, but she couldn't take the one thing that mattered most. Us. I smiled. "She couldn't take your future either. She only delayed it. And you rebuilt it with something she'll never have." Emily nodded, not with pride or bitterness, but with wholeness. That's when I knew. We hadn't just survived what happened. We'd grown roots around it. The story wasn't about betrayal anymore, it was about what came after, about what she couldn't take, about what we refused to release. Looking again at that photo, I didn't see loss. I saw evidence, proof that even after breaking, we still held on to what was real. Not to the person, but to the truth of who we are. The next morning, the sky was soft and undecided, somewhere between silver and blue. I brewed coffee in the old machine Lauren had left behind. The sound was uneven, but warm and familiar, the kind of comfort only time-worn things bring. I sat by the kitchen window, cradling the mug. Steam rose, silence settled. Then I opened Emily's blog, Guardians of the Future. She'd posted a new article. The title stopped me, "What She Stole Wasn't Mine." She wrote about the scholarship she had just earned, about how her counselor asked, "How did you stay focused with so much going on at home?" She almost said, "Because I had no choice." But she didn't. She answered, "Because I had a mother who believed pain isn't a dead end, but a detour. A mother who taught me that even when trust is broken, you don't stop teaching love, you just teach it with boundaries." Near the end was a line that took my breath. She took my money, not my mind. She took my plans, not my purpose. And she took my trust, but not forever, because I chose to rebuild that part with better bricks. I set my mug down gently and just sat there, not thinking about justice or court filings or all the long nights we endured. Just one simple, unwavering truth: my daughter is whole. And so am I. We weren't untouched, but we were unbroken. Lauren couldn't take that. She couldn't take mornings like this, quiet, steady, grounded. She couldn't take the peace I feel watching Emily sit at the same table where we once cried. She couldn't take the bond we rebuilt, not from shared blood, but from shared rebuilding. She couldn't take the fact that we turned her theft into purpose, Emily into mentorship, me into service. That's the thing about thieves, they never see the value of what they can't hold in their hands. Love. Resilience. Integrity. These live in places no one can steal from. As the sun climbed higher and the world outside began to stir, I stayed in that moment, present, not grieving, not analyzing, not preparing. Emily padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, hair a messy halo, yawning mid-step. I handed her the mug I had just poured. She smiled, sleepy but bright. "She stole the account," I said. But not the future. Not this. Emily raised the mug in a mock toast. To starting over. I smiled back. To starting wiser.